doesn't, yeah, but still, it's, if you're gonna get here at 9.
All right, good evening.
Just don't know.
It's Tuesday, March 11th, 2014, and I'm opening up this meeting of the Rhinebeck Central School District Board of Education. May I have a motion to approve the minutes of the February 25th, 2014 regular meeting, which are at your place with a correction?
So moved.
By Mark?
Second.
Second by Lisa. Any other amendments? All those in favor? That's unanimous. That motion passes. We now have an opportunity for public comment. Would any members of the public like to comment? Raise your hand and just know who you are.
Hi, my name is Tara Dwyer. I'm a parent in the district. I decided to write everything out. I'm a parent of a kindergarten student. This is, a lot of the information I say, it's very hard for me to come to this level because I feel like I've had multiple conversations with all the appropriate people that you would, once I get into it, kind of understand. I've had multiple conversations. I'm a parent of a
And I just,
kindergarten-
you know what, I hate to interrupt you, but just to let you know that we don't entertain like comments of a personal nature about
No,
individual
this isn't
staff.
personal.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
basically like a...
That's fine. You carry on.
I'll go and then you can...
Okay.
I'm a parent of a kindergarten student. I came into this district expecting the very best, an education that rivaled that of neighboring districts. With heartache, I stand before you not only unimpressed, but also extremely disappointed at what Rhinebeck has offered my child so far. I came in hoping for evidence of balanced literacy. I've asked all the right questions and have gotten no satisfactory answers. I've met with my child's teacher, Mr. King, on more than one occasion. Balanced literacy is not happening in the kindergarten classroom, specifically readers and writers workshops. So far this year, the children, having been exposed to Common Core, made to practice and practice and practice skills over and over through the use of worksheets and other monotonous paper and pencil tasks. Little work completed is authentic and none follows any form of writing process. The very things I do not see in my daughter's kindergarten experience are the cornerstones of kindergarten in other districts. I came in hoping to see inspiration when I walked down the kindergarten hallway. There should be evidence on the walls that, hey, we have amazingly high expectations for our students, and here's a little sampling of what our students are doing. I haven't seen anything close to that in the several times I've been down the hallway. It honestly breaks my heart. Balanced literacy is not a new idea. Rhinebeck has had a full-day kindergarten for a number of years. Why is it acceptable to be that behind the 8 ball in terms of best practice? Why is it acceptable to keep the expectations so low? Especially now in the era of new standards, it cannot be acceptable to waste a year of education. It absolutely pains me to say this, but this is exactly what this year has felt like, an academic waste. One thing that has completely stunned me is the fact that the literacy coach, formerly of Aussie, does not go into any of the classrooms. Cited as a culture problem by Mr. King, she is instead utilized as a resource to plan out curriculum units. If balanced literacy is not being implemented in individual classrooms and across grade levels, are you really making best use of this resource? I fully support the use of a coach if she's allowed to go into the classrooms to directly observe teaching and learning and provide constructive feedback. This is simply not occurring. What does this district expect from its kindergarten? I always take a look periodically at the mission statement. The Rhinebeck Central School District is an educational community that provides an excellent learning environment and is dedicated to the development of every student's generosity of spirit, passion for learning, and ultimate success. I know that everybody's familiar with that. What do I urge? I urge you to go into the classrooms. Look for the mission being carried out. Look for evidence of the district's vision. If you can't find it, whose responsibility is that? A dynamic and inspirational leader needs to figure out how to lead the staff in the right direction to set those expectations. Get the teachers the help they need to make learning better for students and to provide those who need enrichment the learning they deserve. No child should have to wait around while others catch up. As a parent, I believe in this mission statement, but I've yet to see real evidence of this in my child's education so far here at Rhinebeck. None of what I have said tonight is meant as a personal attack, but a call for some serious attention to be paid to helping teachers improve the practice they are utilizing to help the children grow and blossom. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. And I know it's not easy to come and express your point of view in a meeting like this, but we appreciate that that feedback, and in various formats we'll be able to address that. So thank you for being here. Any other members of the public want to speak? Okay, then we'll move on to our reports and discussion. We have 2014-15 budget development update, but since we did have a budget workshop on Saturday, I doubt there's a whole lot new.
We have a little bit
Okay.
of information that was, I think, if not asked for during our budget workshop, was at least brought up as part of the conversation. This is relative to interscholastic athletics specifically. Please go down this one.
Yeah, it goes that way.
Okay.
The first one you have in front of you is the expenses from last year for our 4 teams that have outside sponsorship. So you see the expenses for those 4 particular programs, and that takes the first half up of what the actual cost was to the school district. Then the line below, the 13-14 school district support, lists the support that we have in the budget for each of those groups. Then below it is additional costs that were borne by the program or the parents, such as transportation for the swimming team. The cross and crew paid for their transportation, but of course, and then additionally, there's 3 question marks under crew, which go into storage fees, shell maintenance, and boathouse rentals that we don't know what those costs are at this moment because we don't deal with that, but we'll contact the crew to just get an idea of what those costs could be, so we got an idea of what that whole picture would look like. So that's number one.
Yeah, at some point during our discussions on Saturday, if I recall correctly, somebody was asking, or it kind of became apparent that some people wanted to get a sense as to how much is being spent versus how much are we spending, and get an idea of what the differential may be. So that was the impetus for my asking Tom to put this together for you tonight.
So Tom, so the grand total minus the 5,000 in most cases, or the 15,000, is what the booster clubs are, how they're supporting it?
Yeah, correct. That would reflect this year, basically.
Okay.
What would happen this year? Last year, it was $5,000 or less across all those sports. So we added $5,000 to each of those sports last year. So those actual expenses from last year, the first 3 teams didn't get any offset by the school district, while the crew had $10,000.
Yeah, one more thing I'd point out to you, not to belabor the point and not to pick on any particular team, but if you, let's take girls swimming just as an example. That program cost $8,819.60, of which the school district paid $5,000 towards that.
This year, right.
If you look at the bottom, we anticipate that transportation costs, which transportation was provided by the parents, would have cost us about $42.79 if we were to have run our own bus.
I see.
If at some point, my goal is to get to the point where we're supporting these teams based on a demonstration that there's interest in the sport, both on the part of the parents in supporting it financially as well as the kids in participating. However, once we might get to the point where we would be fully supporting girls swimming, it wouldn't just be another $3,300, it would be $33 plus $42.79, because at that point, we would be obligated to provide transportation for those students. So that's why we put the items down at the bottom. If you look at crew, my guess is it's going to be a long, cold day when we're able to support that fully, which is going to run around $40,000 plus, and that's an extremely expensive sport, and it's not necessarily my goal to be able to get there with crew because it is so expensive. The other ones are more comparable with most of the other sports that we run, and I don't think that's too much of a stretch over time. So I just want to let you know, once we get to, if we take this over as our own, then we're going to pick up some of those other costs below the line there. That's all.
Okay.
Yep.
We take this around, this side's already gotten it.
Sure.
This is just a different look at the participants in each of the sports, which sent around there was the fall. Just as you see, the overall numbers is actually, they're pretty consistent there. They're not, not too bad. We brought swimming on this year, which, the girls had seven people. I think I missed last year, sorry about that. I'll have to go back and look at that, but...
I think it was 8.
It was
Tom
8.
sent it to me. It was 8 last year.
Oh, was it? Oh, okay. Yeah, I think you're right, it was 8. I don't know how I missed that one. Here is the winter sports. And finally, we have the spring sports. Now, with the spring sport, when I talked with Mr. Boucher, he gave me what he currently had as far as people slated to try out. But he did mention to me that there is basically one group of people who's somewhat there, but knows that number will climb, and that's under the track and field with the modified, both boys and girls. At this time, a lot of kids are trying out for baseball. If there's 25 kids trying out, there's 23 in softball. Steve doesn't think they're all going to stay there, and that some of them will probably go over to track. Modified doesn't start up for a couple more weeks, so more kids will probably become, will be joining the track teams as we go forward into the spring. Right now, but as you see, there's even more participation this year than last year. Enrollment in this school is pretty much the same as it was last year. It didn't change too much. The smallest class is in 6th grade right now, and that will jump into 7th grade. So you're going to see the amount of people over the next couple of years start to dwindle as far as enrollment. You'll start to see that we may start to see participation go down a little bit more, even though it's been held steady in that. I think pretty soon now we're going to start to see enrollment start to have a factor, first on the modified sports. But
Okay, any questions for Tom on this?
Just once things kind of shake down a bit, will it be possible to see those final numbers?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
For the spring sports?
Yeah.
yeah, it'd be 2-3 weeks before everything becomes clearer.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't get into too much of the sports.
No,
It's-
exactly.
I mean, I would only see the numbers be going up. That's what Steve thought. But there might be switching between teams as they pan out.
So I guess we'll update you in a few weeks.
All right. Did you have a question?
I had a question about the budget, but not about this.
Sure, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh. I was wondering if you had gotten the DHIP figure yet, because I...
Wednesday.
Meetings tomorrow.
Oh, it's tomorrow. All right.
Meetings tomorrow afternoon.
Thanks.
So hopefully, weather should be tomorrow. That won't be an issue. I think beginning of last week, I was like, oh no, they're gonna cancel this. We're not gonna know for another month. But it's still on. It will be on.
Diane?
So for this year, we set aside 5,000 for boys swimming, and then boys swimming didn't happen. So what?
Correct.
Correct.
5,000, does that just get absorbed in the sports budget, or what? We don't
It's
use it for
in the
swimming,
sports
what happens?
budget.
Because we're not using it for boys swimming, because there's no boys swimming.
Right.
It'll go into fund
in the
balance
budget,
if it's not used.
It'll carry over into the fund balance.
Any other questions about the budget, or did you have more that you wanted to?
No,
cover
that's
in
all.
the
That's
budget?
all.
Okay.
I just had one quick question and/or reminder for you, Tom, for the internal audit number.
Yes.
We had talked about adjusting that down.
Yes.
Not.
And I did not do that yet.
Just wanted to remind you. Thank you.
Joe actually reminded me today about that. No, I haven't done that one yet, but it's on my list for the next draft.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Anything else on the budget? I mean, we had a long workshop on Saturday, about 3 hours, so that's why it's a short update tonight. But, okay, great. Then we move on to board committee reports in your packet. Let's see, the first one is facilities. And for each of those minutes.
So we met to continue to talk about working from the last building condition survey, which was conducted in 2010, 2011, to look at a list of projected costs, which we're imagining are going to be on the near horizon. And Tom continued to work with Sheldon to develop this document. There's some representation of this behind the minutes. It's not yet finished, but as we said previously, we're looking at 4 areas: safety and security, environmental, physical plant, and educational initiatives, with the goal of talking, and not necessarily proposing, but talking at the board level ultimately about whether or not it makes sense to come forward with this as a capital project. So that's where we're at, and perhaps Tom can speak to what he's given us, but I'll just also say there was a report on the lighting installation, which at the time of our meeting was almost completed, 90% completed at that time.
It's still almost completed.
It's just on the cusp of being completed. And Tom's
Some
going
parts
to...
on order.
There's a few parts on order. Tom is going to be presenting a preliminary timeline in our group for thinking through the issues of how far out we would be looking to go with bringing forward.
Well, what you see in this document here is really, truly just a draft. And basically what I was trying to show, whether or not this format was something that we could bring not only to the committee, but then to the board, is to give a description of it. First of all, breaking it down into buckets: safety and security issues, environmental initiatives, physical plant, educational, breaking it down into some buckets so that we can look at them as a group, what school it's affected with, the estimated budget. This is coming from the BCS that's about 4 years old now. So these numbers could be up, or they could be the opposite way. They could be down. We don't know. They have not been costed out. We're just using the information we had from there. In the notes, what I'm just getting a representation here is a little bit more detail about the issue, where it's located in the building, what the issue is, and then in the other last one is, when do we need to have it done by? So that will give us kind of a timeline of when these things have to be done, so we can back it up to figure out what the optimal time is to potentially go out for a capital project referendum.
Any questions for the facilities committee on these preliminary discussions?
I
Dan?
just have a question on the swipe card system. Is that different than what we have now? What would that be?
We'd be looking to replace it. What is currently is the swipe cards are all individual units. They're not linked together, and some of them are starting to fail, and we need to replace them. And we keep on adding these security places all around both of the buildings. So he's like, everyone he needs to replace are like $1,000. And any time a card gets lost, he actually has to have either Sheldon or somebody on his crew has to go to every single one around the building to say, this swipe card's no good. He wants to get an integrated system, so at his desktop, he can just do it right from his desktop, be done, save time with the guys, it's instantaneous. He can monitor it from home. He'd be able to see who's in and out of the building. He can make sure the building's closed at night.
Who's that you were talking about, Steve?
No, Sheldon.
When we first put the system in, there were only a handful of swipe card stations, and, who'd have thought back whenever it was, 6, 7, 8 years ago, that as life went on, we'd need them here and there, and now we have so many that it seems like continuing to replace these standalone units just doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And we even have swipe card systems within the building, too, to get into labs, things in certain areas.
Computer labs.
Swipe cards only, and so.
Good question. Any other questions? All right, thank you, Gary.
Actually, I have one
go
quick
ahead.
question. So I appreciate that these are all in their buckets, but are you going to try to prioritize them in terms of, things that we actually need to do next year versus something that can happen in the future, so that we can look at?
Well, all this is going to be future. This is not
There's no
for
next
next year
years
on
on
this.
This is all potentially a referendum.
Yeah, that
Raise a
is,
small amount, like a small bond to do some of this work.
that's when the
all over.
BCS indicated it needed to be
Oh,
done.
okay, so I'm sorry, all right.
So if the
You wanted
year is
No,
next
no,
year,
that is
Yeah.
coming right from the BCS. That's not our recommendation yet.
Okay.
Now, I would also point out that, and this connects with part of our discussion on Saturday, there is asbestos removal,
Yeah.
a floor tile removal in this. Again, it's the kind of thing that if we had small amounts of money, we could start chipping away at that, no pun intended, but it would, as much as it would make sense to do it proactively rather than reactively when when the flooring fails, would also be more cost-effective to do like a whole building instead of doing 2 rooms at a time. So looking down the road, that's one of the reasons that that's in this, on this bucket list, as it were.
All right, thank you. We move on now. There are brief Personnel Committee minutes from February 12th. I apologize for the typo around Joe's name on that. But the committee met with our attorney, David Shaw, to discuss upcoming negotiations with the Rhinebeck Teachers Association and the non-instructional staffs unit. We'll move then on to the Curriculum Committee meeting minutes. I believe, is that you, Diane?
That is me. But we had a more updated version of the STEM update at Chancellor on Saturday, so I won't get into that. We talked a little bit about the next generation science standards, that there's nothing new coming so far, no new testing or anything that looks like it's coming anytime soon. One update with the Common Core, that there's a change. The graduation requirement for the English regions to a 75 and the algebra regions to an 80, which was originally slated to be in 2017, has been pushed to 2022. So that's good news. We spent a lot of time talking about the issue of homework. It started with a concern from a parent, and we talked a lot about that. We talked about our own opinions, and there's a lot of parent opinions, and even within the studies, there's a lot of different opinions on the homework issue. So we spent some time talking about that. We have a board policy on homework, and each of the schools has either a policy or the individual teachers give out their policy about homework. The committee did feel like it was a good possible board discussion at some point, but we didn't come to any kind of conclusion on if there should be one policy about homework or one opinion about that. What did come out of it was, parents are unhappy about the amount of homework, whether it's too much or not enough, or what their feelings are on that, the first thing is they should talk to the teacher about it. The teachers kind of decide what homework they're going to have, and that communication with the teacher and the parent is really important, because they can kind of work out between them, maybe what the issue is, which kind of led to another discussion about parents kind of having a difficulty speaking with their teachers about issues like that. So we just spoke briefly about that, and we felt maybe the Communications Committee would take that up as a topic going forward. And then we just spent a little time just getting started on talking about developmentally appropriate curricula. We just briefly talked about that. Marvin updated us a little bit about with the new standards about that some of the curricula with the Common Core, it's meant to stretch students' abilities a little bit, which can be frustrating for parents, and, balancing that with what's appropriate and reworking and tweaking the criteria as we go forward with that. We didn't get it. We're going to discuss that at our next meeting a little bit more, but we just kind of started the topic about that.
Very good. Questions?
I have a question about the discussion about homework as it intersects with the work of the policy committee. To the extent that the curriculum committee is considering the board's policy on homework, is it the feeling of the committee that the board's policy needs to be updated or changed? And if so, how would the curriculum committee want to approach that?
I added the policy in there. We just the question that came from the parent was, is there a policy about it? Is there any kind of standard about it? So this is just referencing all the different buildings, and then there wasn't a feeling by the committee. We didn't even discuss the actual policy too much as far as thinking there's an issue with it. I think the biggest thing that came out of it was there are a lot of opinions on homework.
Right.
And it maybe isn't something that we're looking to make a change now, as there's a lot of changes going through the district right now, and there isn't one thinking, even within the studies, there isn't anything that's saying this is the best way or that's the best way. You know,
I want to belabor this just another moment, though, because I mean, the policies on the statement of the board of, on a whole variety of issues.
Right.
So maybe if we're all, if the committees are not in agreement on what the policy should be, and the board may or may not be in agreement on that issue, maybe in the policy committee, we should be discussing whether or not that's something that we should maintain in the board's policies until such time as there is a uniform policy.
Right. Well, as it's a good board discussion to have, and that policy, I think it's a 400, we won't be getting that to a little while. They may intersect at a place down the road. It works.
Just for like historical purposes, I think it maybe like 8 or 9 years ago, it was kind of more, there was like a moment in time when it was an issue, like a chancellor in the middle school. And my recollection is maybe the building level planning team or whoever the principal was at the time did some sort of, event at the school with parents. And I think, maybe even the guidelines from chancellor of sort of 10 minutes per grade, times whatever grade you are, is kind of evolved out of that. But I think the conversations were good, and when people got an opportunity to just talk about it, and that people do have different experiences with it.
Right.
And then, of course, you always should talk to your child's teacher, and to try and resolve any problems. It seemed to help.
Yeah, I mean, that's what the committee felt, that to speak to your parents, because some people base their knowledge on when they were in school. If you don't get a lot of homework, you're not learning anything, but classrooms run differently than when some of us were in school. And, talking to the teacher can obviously, you can just ask them that question, and, they can tell you what their thinking is on homework, and it may resolve the whole thing. But, we find a lot of times that doesn't happen, that conversation between parents and the teacher, even about an issue like this. So.
All right, well, thanks for taking this up. Any other questions for curriculum? All right, we move on to policy, which looks like it's been awfully busy.
Yes, we're busy. We started off with a review of policy 2110, which is school board access to personnel records. We reviewed the education law, which it appears that this policy mirrors the education law, so we had a few questions for the attorneys, so we're going to refer those out and then decide if we can make any changes, as necessary or permitted. We reviewed Section 2801 of the education law, which talks about the requirement for codes of conduct, and the reason for this was because it's referenced in policy 1520 about public conduct on school property, and since public conduct is covered by the code of conduct, there shouldn't be any really reason to change that policy. There's been some discussion about public conduct earlier in the year. And then there's a list of policies here that we also reviewed. We didn't find any need for revisions on these, except for one that we wanted to ask about, the dollar limit on gifts to school personnel, to see if that needs revision. And I forgot to write it in the minutes, but in our previous review of policies, we had come up with a number of questions for the attorneys, so we're going to start feeding those to the attorneys so that we can try to wrap up our review of those policies in the near future, so that we can then move on to the others that need to be reviewed still.
Very good. Any questions for policy? Well, I'm impressed with the amount of policies that you reviewed.
We haven't gotten to the really difficult.
Yeah, right. These are all the easy ones.
It's the low-hanging fruit.
Yeah,
Things are
very
going to
good.
slow down.
We're learning a lot.
All right.
Yeah,
You guys are going to be
Our policy gurus. All right. right, thank you. And then we have communications meeting minutes, and that is also Deirdre.
So following up on that conversation that began in the curriculum committee around communication between parents and teachers, we sort of discussed a whole host of issues that grew out of that. First and foremost, to encourage all of our viewers and members of our audience and everyone that we will be speaking to between now and tomorrow to come to the board with the coffee with the board, either in the morning or in the afternoon. This will be another opportunity for people just to share informally with board members concerns, really at any level. So we're excited that'll take place tomorrow. We touched upon the issues that Deirdre very helpfully outlined for us in going into conversations with our local legislators. The next meeting will be taking place on Friday. Mark submitted all of the paperwork, so the banners will fly again in Rhinebeck for the class of 2014. And we received a very helpful update from Steve Jensen, our new technology and communications director, about plans for moving forward with the telephone survey to families that who have left the district, also finding out why families return to the district if they've been in another school for some reason. He talked about coordinating the mission of sort of the emergent mission around technology and education in the district with our standing mission statement, and briefed us on the work that's going on with different faculty groups and constituencies around technology in the schools. We talked briefly, but I think in an important way, about how important it is to get the word out in our community about the upcoming school board elections, encouraging people and getting out information about what that process is if they wish to stand. This is something that came out in our coffee hour, some sort of ideas about getting people to think about running for office, and so we talked about the district newsletter is probably the best platform for that kind of information, and actually having questions to ask candidates that will be uniform questions. And then we got into the heart of the matter of communications in the district, and there has been a proposal that's been put forward about crafting a survey. And really the question is, what are we looking to learn from the survey, first of all, and what will we do with what we learn? I think they're both equally important to think mindfully about. And there are models out there. So even after our conversation in the committee, both Laura and Joe found some very interesting leads for us, both in terms of groups that really kind of market surveys to educational institutions, school boards, and districts, as well as tools that come through, say, university research groups that are meant to measure and evaluate all kinds of climate issues in a school district. So we talked about the kinds of questions that we thought would be helpful, but at the end of the day, we all recognize that none of us are social scientists, we're not experts in constructing surveys, and we're not really experts in interpreting any data we might gather through such a survey, so we really do want to be sure that we find a good model if we're moving forward with this. And we return to something that Deirdre asked us to think about, which is we have to look at the situation of where do we ask our questions first. So the notion of having some kind of campaign around improving communication between parents, families, and teachers. What are the best practices in our classrooms for us as families in making that first phone call or that opening up that conversation? It seems that the board could perhaps take on some kind of role in really promoting discussion around these questions. Perhaps we could even create space and time for members of the community to come together and get to know each other outside of those open houses, which are jam-packed, as we know, with being given all kinds of curricular information at the beginning of the school year. So we want to continue talking about possibly having such an opportunity. So talk to your teacher. How are we going to encourage that? How are we going to nurture a climate where people feel that that's effective and the perceived obstacles to having those conversations can be addressed.
Very good. Any questions for the Communications Committee? I guess I would add to, I think this concept of kind of a campaign about talking to your teacher is really important, and we've talked all year really about communications issues and trying to get parents to talk directly to teachers. But I guess I'd wondered, just as I'm reading this, if the Communications Committee can also think about how we dialogue through Joe or other administrators with teachers about their perspective on this issue, so that we hear from teachers. So however the Communications Committee wants to take that up, what that would look like.
Yeah.
Yeah, anything else for communications? You guys have a lot, and I'm glad you're thinking carefully about a survey. We've done a lot of surveys over the years in this district, and I think the ones that have, outside organizations who are experts in how to do and interpret surveys really are the ones that are most successful. So, all right, thank you. I guess that's it for our board committee reports. Thanks, everybody. We move on now to our comments section. Does anyone have any good news?
I have some good news.
Go ahead.
I wanted to say how fantastic it was, the outpouring of community support for the crew fundraiser. We've just been talking about the huge amounts of money required to have that sort of operation launch onto the river every year, and there was really Laura was there was a very large community outpouring and great participation, over 200 people on a dance floor, raising money for crews. So it never ceases to amaze me how generous members of this community are, time and time again, supporting so many different organizations to make our schools places where students have opportunity and get to work together towards a common end.
Yeah, that's great. That really is terrific. Very good. Any other good news anyone want to share? Old business? No old business?
Just the reminder about tomorrow morning and tomorrow evening, and unless I missed your email, I have Laura and Diane and Lisa on tap for tomorrow morning at Chancellor between 9 and 10, and then in the evening I have Laura again and Deirdre and Mark signed up for that. So if your schedule clears out and you want to come to one of the other ones, please feel free. But the four of us will be there, and I think weather-wise we'll dodge a bullet at least for tomorrow. So
Very good.
thank you for agreeing to be there. Also, we have our meeting this Friday afternoon with State Senator Gibson, Laura, Deirdre, Mark, and Lisa have said that they are planning to be there, and that'll be in the community room of the district office.
Great. Excellent. Very
The
good.
only old business I have.
All right. And we have another opportunity for public comment. Kelly?
Kelly Jusa. I have a daughter in 9th grade, and I have questions in regards to how teachers store their grades. I have these concerns because my daughter has a teacher who is out, who's been missing for a while from school. When it came to second semester, in her grades, if she was given an incomplete. And not just my daughter, but anyone who had this step. And I did speak to the principal, and he said, that they were given incomplete because they were trying to retrieve grades. So I just come here as a concerned parent, just to have you be aware, or I'd like to become aware of how teachers store their grades, so this doesn't happen again, so that students are able to get their grade on their grade reports when they're due. shock for me and for my daughter to see that she had incomplete.
Right.
And not to know why at first. You know, I had to ask the questions, and then I was told why, because the grades weren't found. So if we knew how these grades were stored, maybe we could prevent this from happening.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. And I know the board is aware that that situation happened, and it was, the timing was unfortunate, but certainly the issue is now one that we can address, given that this particular incident unfortunately happened, so.
As a parent and a student, when you see your grades online,
Right.
students don't know why they have been incomplete, and the parents are surprised because they don't know
Sure.
any situations.
Okay, well, thank you for raising that concern, and I know the administration is aware of the issue. Okay. Any other public comment right now? We move on to other. Does anyone have any items under other?
Yeah, I have one. A couple of days ago, I sent out an email to you about an upcoming program on April 10th down at Mount St. Mary College entitled Legal Update for School Stakeholders. There is an April 4th deadline. This piqued a lot of interest because I've gotten 4 people already who've responded to me, Lisa as a board member and 3 of our administrators who have asked to be registered. So I'm just bringing that up again if you're interested. And that's I think it's like a 4:30 to 7:30. It's a dinner meeting presentation by some local attorneys, not from our legal counsel, that you let me know as soon as you might know, because we'll start to register people, and I'm not sure how quickly this will fill up. So if you want to go, I'm not going to hold everybody off until April 4th. I'm going to start registering
Sure.
people. So if you have an interest, let me know and just throw me an email, and we'll get you registered also.
All right, thank you. Any other items under other? I'll just say I went to the Dutchess County School Board Association monthly meeting last week, and it definitely is reinvigorated this year, and about 10 schools were represented. I did share with all of you, I think I forwarded emails. The discussion was about different school districts' statements around Common Core and other issues related to education reform initiatives out of the state. In fact, there are a couple more that were handed out that night that I'll scan and email out. But if you haven't looked at them, I think it's interesting conversation. Different school boards really took different approaches. A couple of them did sort of reach out to community members for feedback and came up with rather long statements. As you know, a couple of the school districts, Pauling, I believe, maybe Hyde Park and Dover withdrew, technically from Raise to the Top, their participation. While that doesn't really have any consequences one way or another, that was their approach to objecting to certain elements within it. So I thought it was a very fruitful discussion among board members from different districts. And I think the plan is, I don't know if people have been receiving the emails from Kelly Lappin, who's at Arlington. So she's going to, it used to only go to the one representative from the school board, but now it's going to go to everybody and to superintendents. So that was a positive meeting. All right, and we move on to our action items. Does anyone have anything to remove from the consent agenda? Then may I have a motion upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to approve the consent items?
So moved.
By Mark,
Second.
seconded by Lisa. All those in favor? That's unanimous. That motion passes. May I have a motion upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to approve a leave request under the Family and Medical Leave Act for Danielle Christensen Hicks to commence on or about June 21st, 2014, with such leave to be taken as paid medical leave through the period of disability as certified by a physician in writing, to the extent of her accrued sick leave, and thereafter, such leave to be taken as unpaid childcare leave through December 1st, 2014, or thereabouts.
So moved.
By Mark?
Second.
Seconded by Lisa. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? That's unanimous. That motion passes. May I have a motion upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to approve a request from Shannon Denise to extend her request for unpaid childcare leave through March 20th, 2015?
So moved.
By Mark.
Second.
Second by Lisa. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? That's unanimous. That motion passes. May I have a motion upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to approve additional spring coaches for the 2013-14 school year? In baseball junior varsity, George Nicolatis, $2,743. Modified to be announced, $2,286. And the varsity assistant, Terry Cunningham, as a volunteer.
So moved.
By Mark.
Second.
Seconded by Lisa. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? That's unanimous. That motion passes. May I have a motion upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to accept the resignation of Shirley White, teacher aide, for the purpose of retirement, as stated, effective June 30th, 2014?
So moved.
By Mark.
Second.
Seconded by Lisa. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? That's unanimous. That motion passes. May I have a motion upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to approve a leave under the Family and Medical Leave Act for Rena Genther, effective January 24th, 2014, with such leave to be taken as unpaid leave through the conclusion of the leave on or about April 25th, 2014?
So moved.
By Mark.
Second.
Seconded by Lisa. Any questions? All those in favor? That's unanimous. Passes. May I have a motion upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to approve the appointment of additional advisors for Bulkley Middle School for the 2013-14 school year, effective March 12, 2014?
So moved.
By Mark.
Second.
Seconded by Lisa. Any questions? All those in favor? That's unanimous. That motion passes. May I have a motion upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to approve the appointment of Caitlin Grandy as high school yearbook advisor, effective January 6, 2014?
So moved.
By Mark.
Second.
Seconded by Lisa. Any questions? All those in favor? That's unanimous. That motion passes. May I have a motion upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to approve the resolution directing the district clerk to give notice of the annual school district public hearing on the budget, the annual school district election, and the vote on the school budget?
So moved.
By Mark.
Second.
Seconded by Lisa. Any questions? Actually, this just reminds me under, when we were discussing communications, that maybe we could post on the website that petitions are available to be picked up from the district clerk or from your office. I'm not sure how that's happening, but all those in favor? That's unanimous. That motion passes. May I have a motion upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to approve the appointment of Geraldine Ely as a long-term substitute in the position of instrumental music teacher at Chancellor Livingston Elementary School at the pleasure of the board, effective on or about March 28, 2014 through June 13, 2014, at the salary of Step 3 MA plus 8, $61,015 prorated, in accordance with the 2013-14 RTA salary schedule. This appointment is to fill the vacancy created by the leave of absence granted to Stephanie Callie, instrumental music teacher at Chancellor Livingston Elementary School.
So moved.
By Mark.
Second.
Second by Lisa. Any questions? All those in favor? That's unanimous. That motion passes. We have a motion upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to approve the appointment of Lisa Cole as high school peer leadership advisor, effective December 9th, 2013.
So moved.
By Mark.
Second.
Seconded by Lisa. Any questions or comments? Yeah.
Question, 2013 or 2014?
Yeah.
No, it was
Oh,
effective 2013.
Yeah. All those in favor? That's unanimous. That motion passes. We have a motion upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to approve the list of additional emergency conditional substitute teachers and non-instructional staff for the 2013-14 school year.
So moved.
By Mark.
Second.
Seconded by Lisa. Any questions?
We didn't get any.
There's,
Yeah, they're
they're at your plate.
That's your place.
Right behind the, with 3 names.
Yeah, well, there it is.
All those in favor? That's unanimous. That motion passes. May I have a motion to move into executive session for the purpose of discussing upcoming contract negotiations?
So moved.
By Mark.
Second.
Seconded by Lisa. All those in favor? That's unanimous. We're moving into executive session. Thank you.
Laura, you need to...